So my name is Anna Skorobogatowa. I've been a diplomatic spouse for 15 plus years. I've lived in many countries on 4 continents.
How do you say your last name?
Skorobogatowa. I know it's a tongue twister.
Oh,
If he's sent overseas on a diplomatic posting, he's expected to go to work on day 3. If you were to ask my children, hey guys, where are you from? They'd probably say Australia. But I've never lived there. They haven't lived there. Imagine if we came here, there is a lot of pressure on him from day 3. He's very busy also working out the dynamics of new mission and what his role is and all that. And if he comes home and I dump right on him everything that that I don't know, whatever, maybe I had a bad day. I don't think it's helpful necessarily.
Hi, welcome back. My name is Sabia Batan, and I'm back with a special episode. I keep on saying every episode is special, but this is truly special. And let me start with a question. What does it mean to build a life in constant motion, and especially while representing something bigger than yourself? Today's guest that I have is somebody who has navigated this constant motion since 23 years in 9 countries across 4 continents. Let me welcome her. Anna, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sabia.
How do you say your last name?
Skorobogatowa. I know it's a tongue twister.
Oh my, yes, indeed. Well, I'm really honored to have you on the podcast. Besides what I have said, that you have lived in 23 countries, 23 years, 9 countries, and 4 continents. Tell us about your background.
So my name is Anna Skorobogatowa. I've been a diplomatic spouse for 15 plus years. I've lived in many countries on 4 continents. I have a Russian background, as you can hear by my long Russian last name. Tongue twister. I have a Dutch passport. I'm married to an Australian, and I currently live in Lebanon. I left my home country after I've graduated from the university to go on and study first in Switzerland, and then I moved on to the Netherlands. At some point in Europe, I met my now husband, and at some point we moved together back to Australia, and he became a diplomat. So I actually did not marry a diplomat. He became one throughout our marriage.
Having lived in 9 countries, what are the shared realities between expat and diplomat families? How did you experience this transition?
That's a very good question. And I think there are a lot of commonalities between expat and diplomatic lifestyle, because I've been on both sides. And I'd say every time between the postings, when we went back to Europe, we were the expats. We had to organize everything. And if you look at any relocation, it's like a big iceberg. And yes, logistics and the destination and what for varies per case, but the 95% what's actually going on and what's actually involved in any move around the globe is the same for all of us, right? Because we all know what it is like to set up your life from zero, settle everyone in if you're a mom, and then make sure you fulfill yourself as a person. How do you find friends? How do you navigate the language barrier? All of that. So this applies to all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're a diplomatic or an expat partner or spouse. I would say if I compare those two, the diplomatic spouse lifestyle has a bit more rules, I'd say, and more expectations, because I am to a degree in this representative role wherever I am. If it is a diplomatic posting, yes, I am representing the country that sent my husband here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, but was it difficult for you to step into your partner's job because you were in an independent young profession working abroad in Germany, as you said, right? Was it Germany that you were working first?
I first started in Switzerland, and then I actually lived and worked in the Netherlands for many years.
Okay. Okay. So for you, stepping into your partner's job and joining this lifestyle, how did this shift or reshape your identity?
Well, my situation is probably a bit different because it was not so much me stepping in this diplomatic spouse role, it was me becoming a mom.
Ah,
And that shaped everything, the trajectory of how it was unfolding, so to speak. Because when I met my husband, he was not a diplomat. We just started having family. At some point, he decided to go into diplomatic service. And yes, obviously, when I had young children, I paused my career. And then the move came, the decision of going back to Australia. For him, I mean, for us, we wanted to go back and be closer to his family. And then the next step was for him deciding, okay, actually, I would like to pursue this career as a diplomat. And that's why, yes, it was me, independent woman, me, a young mom, and then moving to Australia, and then becoming a diplomatic spouse, actually.
well, that is quite a transition, isn't it? So the transition which happens as life goes on,
Mm-hmm.
transition, of course, from supporting your partner because he's transitioning from a normal job, probably then to a diplomatic job, right? That is a
Yes,
complex situation.
absolutely. And when you become a mom for the first time, well, it's very challenging. You need to find out who are you, right? Redefine yourself because motherhood changes you and your priorities drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really complicates, in fact. There are so many layers of as a woman that we have to identify ourselves as a mother. And on top of that, if you are relocating together with your family, then it multiplies the challenges. And I
It,
know that relocation affects every family member differently, right? What have you observed in your own family dynamics that during each move, and how did you support your children and your partner through these transitions?
I've done it so many times by now. So I had a lot of opportunities to really ponder upon it, right? Really think what does it mean every time move around, and how do I do exactly that, as you say, support my husband and my children. And I came to the conclusion, Sabi, I don't know whether you agree with me, that if you relocate as a family, you first arrive as a mother. Somehow, when you have kids, they're always the priority because let's say they're school age kids, they go to school. You have to be this emotional anchor for them. At least for me, I first arrive as a mom, as a mother, and
Okay.
as a family, then as a spouse, as a couple, and then at the very last year, it's me as a personality. Because you first settle everyone in, especially children. And as they're getting older, they need different kind of support. Young child is very different to a teenager. So for me, it's first of all this emotional support for the family, for the kids and the husband. So because if he's sent overseas on a diplomatic posting, he's expected to go to work on day 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So who does the rest? It's me, right? Creating a home from a house or making sure there is something to eat on the table in the evening, just all of that, the logistics, the working out of doctors. Well, basically, yes, creating your life from zero. That's all on my shoulders.
In my
And
in my personal experience, what I have noticed is, there are multiple roles as we individually deal with, right? So as you said, like a wife and a mother, and just as single as you, as yourself, a woman who was just looking probably for new connections as friends,
Mhm.
and wanting to get into the cultural integration part. What I noticed from my experience is that there's not a single level of integration which is really like linear. So some days you will have to be, as a mother, strong one, looking after your child when he's sick and finding out the right doctor, the closest doctor, or recommendations. And on other days, then you are just a couple, a wife who's looking for a date night, a place, okay, where can I take my husband or go with my husband? So there are days where each of these roles uh, take over. So for me, my experience has been like that. But I think every relocation, besides a family member, every relocation of an expat or diplomat is going to be quite different. It's never the same. We
Mhm.
do learn from each other. But in my situation, before moving in, there were some community groups that we could access to, whether it's online or maybe via some recommendations that, okay, maybe that group is nice for you to have a look at, and maybe find out recommended doctors, dentists, schools for that matter. How was that in your case? Was there anything like that before you move in?
So normally, when you go on a diplomatic posting, you have a chance to read the post report. There is information gathered by the government, by the ministry about the post you're going to. Let's say right now I'm based in Beirut, so I had a chance to read through it. You know what it is like to live here as a family. The shopping, grocery shopping situation, I don't know, your hairdressers, your schooling, the doctors, just in general. So that's the idea you get of the country. And then you have a chance to connect with your colleagues. That's my husband normally would do that because I don't have access. I don't know who is already there, who has children, who doesn't. So he would need to do that because he's the one
Yeah.
who can once again access this information. So he would call and check and say, okay, my kids are that old, and what school are you sending your children to? But every like our embassy would have a benchmark school that's normally the best one. And yes, obviously you can choose to send your kids there, or you can look at other options. But let's say there are not that many options here, and hence that was easy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay. So it's quite different. When we talk about similarities, this is a big difference, I feel. Um, and I think in some countries are easier than the other, isn't it? In terms of language or probably the culture part. That's what I.
Absolutely. Yes. Countries are different, but also I can only tell you how the Australian government does it. And I know I obviously have a lot of friends in the diplomatic circles, and I know it varies a lot. Sometimes they just give you a sum of money and they can decide whether you send your child to this or that school, and you choose your own housing. So it varies a lot. So it's not like, it's these are the rules and they apply to everyone. No.
Are you saying that country-wise, the relocation rules are different?
Uh, the foreign ministries have different set of rules, so to
Right.
speak, guidelines for sending their diplomats abroad. And I can only tell how the Australian government does certain things, or I can share with you what I heard from other spouses. And from what I know, it varies quite a bit. It varies on the length of the posting varies. For some governments or ministries, it's 4 years, and then you go somewhere again for 4 years, and so on. You don't need to go back to your home country.
Mhm.
While for a lot of countries like France or Australia, you go overseas for 3 to 4 years, and then you're supposed to go back, let's say Paris or Canberra, and you spend some time there, and then you can go again overseas. So it varies a lot. I know for the States, I think people say it's sometimes just 1 year, 2 years, and then you're rotating. So again, it varies so much.
Wow. So for us, we have this relocation companies who will help us in settling down. They will show us not just the apartment or the house to stay in, but also with schools and groceries. Some of them will also help you with, okay, that is supermarket. And these are the set of maybe parents in the community that we have, members that you can connect and maybe learn whether it is uh, if this the school is good, or if that area is perfect for you or not as a family to live. So a relocation companies helps us. Isn't that the case in your situation? Aha.
No, we don't have any relocation companies. I mean, obviously, yes, let's say Allied Pickers probably will be flying our stuff over, but that's it. What some governments offer, or some posts would have, a community liaison officer.
Hmm.
And that would be a person, because I did this job when we were in China, in Shanghai, on a posting. I worked for the consulate, and I was in charge of welcoming new people, new families, or finding out information on their behalf, getting in touch with schools or hospitals, but also taking them on a little tour
Yeah.
on the second day, just showing them, okay, this is your Carrefour, this is where you can get that, and just giving you some basics, but not, let's say, we don't have, well, not to the same degree, let's say, this position here in Beirut. So, but it's very minimal.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's quite new to learn. And it's interesting. The difference is then not, the difference is there. It's not similar, with this relocation. I know for the fact that children need to be handled in a different way because they have to say goodbyes to their friends, and the school teachers, things that they like in a particular city or a country. What are the unique emotional and educational challenges of parenting in this constantly changing environment for you? What did you face?
And it's a very good question. And because I have three children, so I know firsthand how challenging it is. Because I think, to me personally, that's the heaviest of lifting that you do with every relocation. It's making sure that your kids are thriving and happy wherever you go. And I find when the kids are younger, it's a bit easier. You just need to organize a play date. You just need to find a playground or play group. But when the kids get older and suddenly you're not cool anymore as a parent, they actually do need their peers. When they're becoming a teenager, they need to redefine themselves. They need to find out who they are. And us as parents, kind of, we do fulfill this role, but to a certain degree, they really need their friends. But when they're 13 or 14, I cannot organize a play date for them. I cannot find friends. I can connect with some moms. I can maybe facilitate some, I don't know, catch ups. But it's up to them to be this new child at school again, and arrive, actually, and find your people, or his, her people, their people. And I think that's very challenging. So I found it personally not easy. And that's why I said, when I move around the world, I first arrive as a mom. Because what I also did a couple of times, I've relocated, we've moved quite a bit between the hemispheres. Obviously, Australia being in the southern hemisphere, South Africa. And then when you move back to Europe, or back and forth, the school year doesn't align. The school year down there starts in January.
Yeah.
And here it starts in September.
Mhm.
And we have three kids in the school age. And you really need to make sure, okay, are we staying here a bit longer? Or am I then with the kids going ahead so they can start the school year at the new place and be with everyone else on the first day of school? And that's actually, to answer, going back to the question you asked, how do I support my spouse? That's what I've done a few times. So he could start his postings or finish them. I went ahead 6 months ahead, or I stayed behind. So he could move countries, and I was on my own with three kids. And that's why I know how challenging it is. Arriving in a new place where children don't know anyone, and you are the only safe space they have, and they're grieving, they're unhappy, and you're the only person who is there for them.
That is, that's a level of challenge that is, once you are in it, I think you know it, but I think just to listen to it, I know, I can imagine how it is. I have just one child, but with three and three different ages, it also comes down to the age. Or okay, like, can the kid move right now because he's at the last year for senior school or junior school, right? Oh, can we move from IB to IGSE? Is that good? Not good? When you move, as you mentioned, the time of the year, the start of the year, academic year, do does he or she need to repeat the class? Because as you shift from IB to IGSE, uh, based on the curriculum, what I've noticed is some kids have to repeat themselves in the same academic school year, and that, to tell your child that hey, you have to repeat, it's another oof. I mean, it's, yeah, it's difficult.
It's challenging, and I've done it a few times. My kids did it a few times. They had to stay behind or they had to jump ahead because I said if it doesn't align, you really either have to stay behind or you have to negotiate with the school. They might need to sit some exams to really make sure the child is able to cope with, because you kind of jump over half a year of schooling,
Yeah.
or you automatically, if you do it a few times like we did and you repeat the half year of the school, the 6 months, at some point you're the oldest child in the class.
And
That happens.
do you get the chance to wait until your child finishes the academic year, or you don't get the opportunity to? Nah, okay.
No, it doesn't. So, and that's why who does the heavy lifting behind the scene is often the spouse. So my husband was sent here to Lebanon in November. No, it's no near the end of any school year, not even uh, the first half of the year. And the same applies to all other postings. No, it's just, you have to start there. But I have to say, normally the ministries are a bit lenient when they know, okay, your child is about to finish school. I really hope it won't be, because that's going to happen here. So my eldest, fingers crossed, is going to finish her school here in Beirut. And I really hope we can stay here until she graduates.
It sounds more like not just a trailing spouse, but also a trailing member, isn't it? A member who sometimes have to trail because of your partner's job, and sometimes your kids who's yet to finish the school, the academic year. So you have to wait for that. So, which means that it's a constant hopping of roles, and your your own identity in this is is at the back seat. You have to sometimes forget about what you wish to do, or what is your aspiration, ambitions. Maybe learning some course, which is absolutely possible. That in a new country, you feel like, okay, I want to do a course in maybe photography, or maybe learning something else. But then, okay, you have to really be there for your children. A trailing member, not nice to probably say in here, but it feels like that, right?
Exactly. And I agree with you on that, Sabia. It's not the prettiest of terms, right? Trailing spouse. Some people say accompanying spouse. It sounds a bit better, but I think the truth of the matter is that, right? We are in the passenger seat, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
In a way, right? Your husband or your spouse is the one in the driver's seat because he's sent around to that location or this location, and you are in this passenger seat. And that's why I think what we do is often so invisible and overlooked, because we're wonderful facilitators, family CEOs, managing the logistics, creating home, being this emotional Wi-Fi for the whole family, really like being this glue. And I think people don't see it. Hence, it's not really recognized by the companies or probably by the ministries. And I think it takes it. It's not easy. And what can happen, and it did happen to me. I can be also very honest about that. Yes, I think I really lost myself in that beautiful process of moving around the world. Yeah.
This is a very deep conversation. I'm going to touch on that, come back on that topic a bit later. When it comes to raising kids across multicultures and the school system that we discussed, how has that shaped their world view? What are the gifts and trade off? you've noticed in raising third culture kids, because your kids have been raised in multiple cultures. So uh, they seem to have multiple, how do I say? I can't say identity, but their sense of belonging seems to be something in between worlds. So that's why we refer them as third culture kids. Their culture is different
Yeah.
than yours and your husband's any which ways. So how has this shaped their view and the gifts of and the trade-off of this transition, the constant move?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. I think it did enrich my children. I mean, this lifestyle is incredibly enriching for the children, language wise, culture wise. I mean, they know the world is a beautiful place. It's diverse, and yet they know all people are the same wherever you are, kind of with same, very similar fears and desires and aspirations. And what I can tell, because now my kids are older and they can articulate actually how they experience this lifestyle. So, yes, the challenges, let's start with challenges. It's this constant loss and grieving of moving on and saying goodbyes. It's hard for everyone, but it's also very, very challenging for the children, because every time you build these beautiful friendships, and it's very heartbreaking to say goodbye to your friends. So this loss of grief and of moving around, I think for my children too, because maybe again it's just our situation, feeling a bit rootless because we literally don't have a home as such. I would say yes. If you were to ask my children, "Hey guys, where are you from?" they'd probably say Australia, but I've never lived there. They haven't lived there. So where are your roots and where do you belong? I think that's a big question. That's why with a lot of moving around the world, our home is just our family, very tight family unit. And as a bonuses of this lifestyle, once again, they've seen the world, they're still experiencing it, different cultures, different languages. And I think my children know how privileged they are. And they do feel this responsibility. I need to make something out of my life, because I can tell it. My eldest is 16. She's going into grade 11 next year, and she had to choose her IB subjects. And for her, it's really okay. What I'm going to do, I've seen the world. I know, well, the world is in trouble. What can I do? How can I make it a better place? Really feeling the responsibility, the experience I had, but also like it is this privileged upbringing. I have a head start, she told me, comparing to so many children. A couple of weeks back, the school where she's at here in Beirut, they went on a school trip to Nepal for 1 week. Pretty fancy, right? And she had an opportunity to meet local Nepalese kids, visit the school there, and she came back telling me, "Mom, it was so life-changing, because I know those bright, beautiful girls and boys, they'll, frankly, let's be honest, probably will never have the same opportunities that I have right now. So I have this huge responsibility to make something meaningful."
That's beautiful thinking, honestly. And that's what I think should be the aim, a takeaway of living abroad for so many years. If your child is able to think like that, uh, and start to really think of, okay, how can I impact my lived experience in the society where the others can probably come to a different, no, increase the level of the standard of living. How do I say that?
Exactly. More quality, probably, right?
More balanced.
More balance, yes. More equality, more chances, equal chances for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have seen also like one of my friend, her kids are gonna go to Japan for the first time from Colombia, and I think that Colombia, Japan, that's a huge distance. Of course, they have to pay for the expenses, right? But the opportunity to travel to a country without mom and dad, yeah, I think that is quite different. There's a lot of learning in there, and there the kids are put in a situation where they need to be independent. while always traveling with the family becomes, oh, okay, I mean, mom, dad are there to look after yourself. But on your own to travel, I think it teaches you quite some things. So privilege, but yes, it's a good takeaway.
It is. And just on the topic of independence, my middle child is actually in a boarding school in Australia. So she does fly across the world more or less on her own a few times a year. So she is incredibly independent. And I think that's another bonus of, yes, growing up like that.
Oh, I think that must be hard for you, but okay. I mean, I understand you need to kind of have some sense of stability in your children's life. And if they chose to be in a boarding school, yeah, well, that is a stable life, I guess. Different life, not as privileged as what you think as a diplomatic or expat life. But yeah, it's not a bad option. Yeah.
And I think at some point when the kids become older, it's good to give them options,
Yeah. True.
right?
Yeah.
That if you cannot force them into things they don't want anymore. And I think it's not a smart idea to do that. So if your child says, no, I actually prefer this school and that's what I'm doing and that's where I'm staying, I think as a parent, the only thing we can do is to support them.
Yeah. But it's hard decision. Yeah.
Yes, it is. But we do it out of love. I think that's the ultimate act of love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I know that's what she wants and I love her so much. So I'm willing to live, and love her from this distance, which is not easy. Yes.
Really am curious to know, and that is something, an obvious one, is the pressure that one goes through in this constant relocation.
Mhm.
The shifting of roles, constant relocation, and there's this emotional imbalance that can strain any stronger relationship, partnership, right? From your experience, what are the specific challenges couples in this lifestyle need to be more aware of?
Mm. That's an excellent question, Sabia. I think you're absolutely right. Even the strongest of relationships will go through a very bumpy ride because it's a very challenging lifestyle, however you look at it. And I think what happens to a lot of marriages or couples, you start as a couple, right, in these equal positions because you were a professional, he was a professional. And then when you become a trailing spouse and a mom, I mean, that's just reality of this lifestyle. Oftentimes you become the supporting part or member of the family. You are facilitating things, and even like physically and logistically, if I go tomorrow, let's say, to a function somewhere, people would ask me, what do I do here in Lebanon? As they probably asked you wherever you went, like, what do you do here? You'd say, my name is, and I'm a spouse of, and my husband works for blah, blah. So you are, even the way you introduce yourself, you are there because of him. You're the spouse of. And I think if you don't know that's something that's going to happen, you're not prepared, it's very easy, very soon from this relationship of two equals to move into something that looks very skewed and out of balance, right? Because you are facilitating and supporting, you do have a say, you are mission critical. But I think how to maybe communicate with each other and be still this relationship of two equals in terms of what I do is equally important. Without me, you would not be able to, frankly, be and do what you do right now. So it's also for yourself acknowledging your own role. Because as a mom, you don't get promotions, you don't get laurels, you don't get pay rise. For what I do, I don't get paid. And it's very easy to get stuck in this. And it's very easy to become resentful. And I think resentment kills relationships. So that's why it's very important to be aware. Even if you are following him or her around the world, you are equally important, you're equally valuable, you're equally, precious in all of that.
Yeah. I think the best practice that I feel when any couple, whether they are moving, relocating often or not, I think is communication. The more you communicate as to how you feel, the better there's an understanding. You may not have the solution immediately, but I think there is a heavy weight on you if you don't communicate and keep it, like as you said, like being resentful, and that's not going to help the couple. So in my personal opinion, staying connected through this transition is communication, and I'm sure like for you as well it has helped. uh, Again, some things are unavoidable, right? In his situation, where it's a diplomat, you have a job and you have to, as a day third, go to office because you have your new role to handle, and
Mhm.
you have to be at home or maybe just with the kids. uh, how you feel, you need to communicate. He may not be able to change it, but at least being a good listener probably is also going to help in some way, I think so.
It is, but I also know because, I coach diplomatic spouses. I have a lot of friends who are diplomatic and expat partners for that matter. And what happens is, I think it's also important to have an outlet for whatever you're going through. It should not only be your partner,
Mm.
because I think it can also put a lot of strain on the relationship. Because imagine if we came here, there's a lot of pressure on him from day three. He's very busy also working out the dynamics of new mission and what his role is and all that. I'm obviously going through my struggles, my challenges. And if he comes home and I dump right on him everything that, that I don't know, whatever, maybe I had a bad day, I don't think it's helpful necessarily. So that's why I think creating community spaces where we can connect and share our experience, and then also understand, okay, how you do that, how do you, it takes this unnecessary load off the relationship. I think that's why it's also very important.
And I think that we have all gone through it, isn't it? At some
Mhm.
of, as you said, when I have done that with my husband, honestly, he comes from work, uh, and there I am at home alone with no friends, or the location, the country is quite new, the language is new, and I indeed have dumped my emotions, how I feel like puff on him, and
Yeah,
that is a learning process, I think so, for the couple as well. I know it shouldn't be that way, I know it, but in spite of that, there is an urge of, okay, what do I do with what I feel? I have to say to somebody. You can, to a certain extent, your family can understand you, but the person who is right in front of me and because of whom I am here needs to
exactly.
needs to listen.
Yes.
And it is not a pleasant situation to be in, but you have to go through it. I feel like once you go through it and you know how it feels like, and then you know, okay, for next time onwards, I know what to do. Communicate, not to kind of keep it until things are until here and then start to explode. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. If you don't know anyone, and that's why obviously challenging, you shouldn't be keeping it all to yourself. And I think obviously then it's very tempting, rather automatic. We can just, right, our spouse can be the outlet for all those emotions and grief and challenges we're feeling. Um, yes, it's very natural, it's very human. But I think also, again, just let's go back to the couple dynamics. I think if you have family, especially, I think it's very important also to have this space for just romantic and dating and just really being you, the two of you. And obviously, if you're new to a country, there are so many things you need to work out and sort out. I think it's important to also have it as a priority. I don't know, maybe in going out, just the two of you, if possible, once a week. If it doesn't work, maybe every second week. I don't know. I think this also has to be really scheduled because, if you have kids, you just have to schedule, like even the romantic stuff.
I think you have to work on it. At the end of the day, that's how it is. You have to work on it. But yeah, with this, some say if you marry into this world,
Hmm.
you should expect this lifestyle. Some say that, right? How do you balance empathy for the struggle with the responsibility of that choice, because
Mhm.
they say it's a choice. How would you react to that?
Yes, very valid question. Totally understandable. Once again, I haven't married a diplomat. He became a diplomat. So it's not like, okay, now you're a diplomat, I'm divorcing you. So it's not like I chose this lifestyle. It became my lifestyle throughout our marriage. And even if you marry a diplomat and he already is, or she's already doing this diplomatic job, I think what is kind of expected from you by the society, by other diplomats, by diplomatic services and ministries, you are honored and privileged to be a diplomatic spouse. Maybe they don't say it aloud, but it's kind of unwritten sentiment that you can feel, right? It's very privileged and it's an honor. And that's what a lot of us internalized. And that's why we even feel like, who am I to struggle or not be okay? Because to the outside world, my life looks amazing. But you and I both know there are so many emotional and other challenges that are involved. And I think just giving yourself this permission to not be happy or say, it's actually really challenging. And what also a lot of people don't talk about it, you're actually in a very vulnerable position. Because if you haven't worked for 15 years, if there is a huge gap in your CV, if there are no savings and no pension, and your marriage falls apart, you're in a very dark place. So there are a lot of layers to that. But I think there are so many taboos that people only talk about that much, and that's why when people start this lifestyle, a lot of them don't know what it is. Really, they don't know what to expect. I get so many questions now from LinkedIn audience. Hey, I'm new to that, or my spouse is about to go on the first diplomatics posting. What do I do? Do you have any tips, any suggestions? Because no one talks about it.
Yeah.